Globalization has rapidly populated the entire planet with an almost epidemic explosion of a handful of generic typologies. Recently we were asked to do this sort of classic typology of 100,000 square meters of 5 hotel towers sitting on a public podium of shopping and lobby. It was going to be placed in the middle of Bawadi in the Dubai desert. And Dubai is this sort of interesting global phenomena that 10 years ago, I'm not sure if I had ever actually heard about Dubai, but because of spectacular projects like the Palm or the World, Dubai has transformed into this sort of battlefield of spectacular architecture competing for international investment and international attention. And even though Dubai is actually famous for its architecture, the cityscape looks remarkably much like a generic American city. This is Dubai, this is Miami. And the reason is that a handful of American, British and Australian architects have been sort of copying generic American skyscrapers all over the desert. And there's nothing more unsustainable imaginable than to do glass towers in the middle of the desert. Essentially, you need to burn tons of fuel for cooling these glass boxes to make them actually livable for humans. But it didn't used to be like this. Before globalization, the Arabs actually knew how to sort of populate their landscape with cities and buildings that would almost naturally optimize the climate for human life. So we thought ourselves, could we actually sort of reinvent this sort of Arabian vernacular for this sort of new breed of programs at a completely different scale? So we asked ourselves, how can you actually put 100,000 square meters of mixed-use program in the middle of the desert? Well, first of all, you could remove your building from the direct sun at the hottest hours of the day, making it sort of this sort of almost like inverted pyramid. And you could even carve out large public spaces that would exist in the shadow of the building. And the lobbies that are traditionally these sort of introverted atriums would transform into these sort of skylit public spaces. So we actually realized that our main idea would be essentially to turn the generic typology of like residential towers on public podium upside down, turning it into a table of a canopy of lobbies sitting on feet of living. Or in other words, our proposal became to turn the vision of Bawadi on its head. So how to do this? Well, essentially, since Bawadi is this sort of tabula rasa development, there is no context. And since all the surrounding developments are happening in fierce competition, there's no exchange of information. The only things we can relate to is actually the climate by removing our facades from the sun, and the streets by trying to create connections between the future public space. So we start carving out these sort of urban arcades, creating like almost like a network of public passages crisscrossing through the volume, gradually excavating the block of program into this sort of a skyline of spires that stand upside down. So the public space beneath the building that would normally be occupied by large boxes of parking or shopping is in this case kept free as a big public space, passing freely through the like underneath the building. And we actually, rather than having like large air-conditioned interiors, we propose to make all the retail into an outdoor Medina, allowing people to actually walk freely underneath the comfortable shadow of the building above. And above, the lobbies, restaurants and shops that would normally be compressed in deep spaces at the bottom of the building are here placed close to the sky, open to Islamic courtyards and urban oases. And at one place we slice out a fragment of the canopy, opening up a piece of the sky above the mosque below, that is actually integrated in the urban fabric of the Medina. So we gradually started realizing that by trying to invent a new typology for accommodating large programs in the Arabian desert, we were actually stumbling upon architectural vocabulary resembling the traditional Islamic architecture, but not at the scale of a building, rather at the scale of the city. We were actually inventing a new form of public space hosted underneath these like massive urban vaults, allowing people once again to actually populate the desert in the comfortable shadow of the building above. And as you zoom out, you see that it's not only the skyline of a city upside down, it almost looks like a pyramid turned on its head, the ultimate icon of insanity. So by actually trying to reinvent the Arabian vernacular, rather than desperately trying to chase the global spectacular, we were coming up with an architecture infinitely more expressive than what we could have ever imagined on our own.